We are looking at photosynthesis, which, if you recall, is when a photosynthesizing cell can take carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, water, the energy from sunlight, and make glucose, which is C6H12O6, as well as oxygen. If we look at a leaf, for example, we find that there are cells inside a leaf that can do this. And here we have a picture of a plant cell with a nucleus that has its DNA, mitochondria that can make ATP for the plant cell, a central vacuole that can store fluid for the plant cell, and chloroplasts, which can do photosynthesis. Let's look at a chloroplast in more detail here. So if we magnify this and we open it up, what we find inside of it are these stacks of discs, which we call thylakoids. Around the thylakoids is the area known as the stroma of the chloroplast. Now, photosynthesis is actually two steps. So the first step is known as the light reactions, which take place inside the thylakoids. And the second step is known as the carbon reactions, which take place inside the stroma. So let's look at the light reactions first, which are taking place inside the thylakoids. The purpose of the light reactions is to use sunlight in order to generate two high energy molecules. One is called NADPH, which has two electrons on it, and the second one is known as ATP, which is the energy molecule of life, or otherwise known as the energy currency of life. Let's look inside one of these thylakoids, and let's examine what a thylakoid looks like when we magnify it. Looking at the thylakoid, we see that it is made up of a phospholipid bilayer membrane, which wraps around to make that characteristic disc shape of the thylakoid. We see that there are proteins embedded within the membrane. The first protein is known as photosystem 2. Photosystem 2 takes light energy from the sun and catalyzes a redox reaction in which water is split into three components, one of them being oxygen, another one being hydrogen ions, and the third one being electrons. These electrons are donated to that photosystem 2 protein. The chlorophyll molecule found inside the photosystem 2 protein takes the light energy from the sun and brings those two electrons into a high energy state, which causes them to jump to the next protein. And this concept is known as the electron transport chain, when electrons start moving from one protein to the next. This second protein in the phospholipid bilayer membrane of the thylakoid is going to cause hydrogen ions from the outside of the thylakoid to enter the inside of the thylakoid. These hydrogen ions will accumulate and increase in concentration. The third protein in this electron transport chain is known as photosystem 1. Photosystem 1 also has a chlorophyll molecule that can capture the light energy from the sun, and this will cause the two electrons that have now jumped to it to go into a high energy state as well, causing them to go to the fourth protein in the chain. This fourth protein will do a final redox reaction in which it donates these 2 electrons to an NADP plus molecule, which combines with hydrogen ions to make a high energy molecule called NADPH. And you can see the 2 electrons are right there on that molecule. Please notice that this NADPH molecule is found inside the stroma of the chloroplast. If we look down here, we will see what will happen to this high concentration of hydrogen ions. At the bottom, we have the last protein called ATP synthase, which is going to use this high concentration of hydrogen ions in order to catalyze a reaction to make ATP. The hydrogen ions will diffuse from inside the thylakoid to outside the thylakoid. This will be the fuel that causes the ATP synthase molecule to catalyze the reaction in which ADP and inorganic phosphate are combined to make the high energy ATP molecule. This ATP molecule is found inside the stroma with the NADPH that we made above. So in summary of this, the light reactions take the electrons from water, use the energy from sunlight to make these 2 high energy molecules, NADPH with the 2 electrons from water and ATP.